We're letting people in. Hi, folks. Welcome to our Ethics Center conversation. Today, we're going to be talking with Pamela Lane-Garon and Negin Tavildary about conflict resolution issues. So I'm so glad you're joining us, and we want to say hi to everyone entering into our Zoom room. And also, if you're following on Facebook, hi to everyone out there in Facebook land. I'm Andrew Fiala, and I am the director of the Ethics Center here at Fresno State. And I am your moderator for this event. I'm going to do a couple of quick introductions, and then I'm going to get out of the way and let our awesome presenters have a really great conversation. These are two amazing women, and just as we were getting ready for this to unfold, I was just reminded about how wonderful they are. I mean, just what a great couple of people. So we're doing this today because today's Conflict Resolution Day. So we're doing this event on conflict resolution. And as we get started, we want to say thank you to the Leon S. Peters Foundation, who sponsors this sort of stuff and has been a strong supporter of the Ethics Center here at Fresno State. And I'd also like to say thank you to Belle Vang, who is behind the scenes. Belle set up all of the streaming video stuff. She knows what she's doing with this audiovisual stuff. She's awesome. She's the assistant to the Ethics Center this year. And then I'd like to just inform you about a couple events coming up with the Ethics Center, and then I'm going to introduce our speakers and I'll shut up. So on Monday, we have another panel that's going to be focusing on ethnic studies curriculum here at Fresno State with 3 faculty from various departments across campus. And Belle, I'm going to ask you if you could throw into the chat our information about the event on Monday that's going to talk about ethical issues with regard to ethnic studies curriculum. The following Monday, we're going to have a panel discussion with Fresno State students about a similar set of topics. So we're going to talk about social justice with student leaders on the following Monday. And then in November, if you're interested, we're going to do a web dialogue and a big event, a panel discussion on women's rights issues, because this is the 100th anniversary of women's suffrage. So as part of a celebration of that, we're collaborating with the League of Women Voters and others to do an event in November on that topic. You're welcome to join us. You can find out information about this stuff on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram. We've got all this social media, thanks again to Belle, who's running the social media for us. So one procedural thing as we proceed, we want to have questions and answer and participation from our audience. We're going to encourage you to put questions or comments or information in the chat function here in Zoom. If you're on Facebook, you can do that as well, and then Belle is going to help us keep track of what's going on Facebook. So feel free to use the chat as this unfolds, and I'll keep my eye on the chat, and if you post something there, I'll try to make sure that our speakers respond to whatever it is you want to share. We may have the speakers call out some of our participants. I heard that they were saying maybe at some point, because we know some folks are in the audience who have some expertise and some interest in this topic. So we might ask you to unmute at some point. But for the most part, we're going to ask you to stay muted and use the chat for interaction. So let me introduce our speakers. Both of these women I have been working with for a long time, and I'm very happy to call them friends and colleagues. So it's so cool that we can do this today. First, I'd like to introduce Dr. Negin Tavildary. She's a lecturer in the Department of Philosophy and director of Fresno State's Mediator Mentors program. She has a PhD in Comparative International Studies from Beheshti University in Iran. She's worked at the United Nations Office for the Coordination of Humanitarian Affairs and the UN's Assistance Mission to Afghanistan, which was part of the UN Department of Peacekeeping. Dr. Tavildary teaches courses in peace and conflict studies and works on mediation, peace building, and interfaith relations in the Fresno community. She's the current face of Mediator Mentors. Dr. Pam Lane-Garon is the founder of Fresno State's Mediator Mentors program. She has a PhD in educational psychology from Arizona State University. Dr. Lane-Garon retired from Fresno State and relocated to Arizona, where she now teaches for Grand Canyon University. Her research focuses on conflict resolution, social and emotional learning, and school climate issues. Through Dr. Lane-Garon's leadership and vision, Fresno State's Mediator Mentors program grew into a nationally recognized and award-winning program. So we've got the beginning of the program and the present state of the program. So I'd like to thank you. You know, if we were face to face, we could do a round of applause for our presenters. And let me start it off by, you know, welcoming you both. And then the first question we wanted you to discuss are, what are the key values at stake in conflict resolution? And what are the values that guide your own work? And then we want to hear about life, the universe, and everything. So I'm going to invite Pam Lane-Garon to take over and give us her thoughts to get us started.
Thank you, Dr. Fiala. I'm so happy to be here with the visionaries in the Zoom room who made it possible for Mediator Mentors to get started and to grow and to find its current stability. I'm just thrilled to be here. Thank you for asking me. It's a nice feeling to know that the people who are with us today are the people who really made the program. They are responsible for the shape it took. And as I give a little bit of history, since I'm the relic here, I mean, I'm the historian here. If it's your program, if it's your moment when you touched Mediator Mentors, type in, oh, Sanger, that was me. Or, oh, that grant at Fresno Unified, that was me. I got a lot to say about that. So please do identify yourself and say perhaps what Mediator Mentors meant to you at that time and how it affected you and your work. So let me go to the first question, and that is the values that we hold dear in mediation. Andy, that's a good question. There's all kinds because it's program implementation. So that has a set of values. Mediation within the process itself has a set of values. It's a skill set. So the application of that in a particular setting has its own set of values. So when you think about mediation, our children were telling other children, everything you say here is confidential. We're not going to be spreading this information around the school. You can tell us how you're feeling and we'll keep that sacred, you know. To the extent that anything can be private in a school, those children were speaking the truth. But in application, that's an area where we might question our ethics. Are we giving them false sense of security? Those are questions to ethically debate, yeah? Then there's neutrality. We tell our children who are mediators to master the talk. I will not take sides. I will listen to both sides of your disagreement, and I promise that I will let you say everything you need to say, and I will not champion one side or the other. Well, neutrality in the Harvard negotiation project, 1979, etc., that has been challenged too. Can we truly say that in our mediation process, we keep that value sacred? So those are things for a longer discussion, maybe on another day, but those are definitely values of practical implementation that we need to think about. May I mention, Andy, as a way of getting our audience involved, that the first school that this project dealt with was Bethune Elementary in 1997. That was my first year at the university. I was thinking about getting married, moving to California, getting a job at Fresno State, and then I landed and Bethune said, we were trying to put together this program for kids to solve their own conflict, and we heard that you've been doing that. Can you come out and help? So my guess is there's somebody from Fresno Unified who remembers that. Are you out there? I know that Christina Casanario Wilson told me she was at Bethune not long ago, and she found our painted steps of conflict resolution for the little kids on the asphalt. Are you there, Christina?
I'm here. I'm here. I'm here.
Oh, good. Do you remember that?
Yes, because they won an award, I believe. Yes, I do remember that. That was a year or so ago. Yes, your mark is everywhere.
Oh.
Mediator Mentors.
But the paint is still holding up on the asphalt?
Yes.
That's weird. That's amazing. Karen, are you there? Oh,
yes, I'm here. I'm here. Yes, I'm honored to be here.
Oh, me too. I'm honored to have you in the audience. Do you remember the Peace Bridge?
Absolutely. Yes, absolutely. It is replicated in a variety of forms everywhere. I get a chance to take it, Pam. So as Christina said, it is, your mark is felt widely everywhere your stewards go. Or so you've shepherded us well, Pam.
Well, thank you. But I think of it as the beginning, because what I hear you doing now is so incredible. The fact that you have grown a small strategic skill set into an entire program of restorative justice to help this program go forward, I'm just in amazement, truly in amazement. Let's see if we can remember what the steps are. Let's see. Does this work for you, Negin? Introduction. Listening.
I like
Waffles.
waffles with
Syrup and whipped cream. Okay, all that means to us, introduction, listening, wants and willings, and solutions. And for that value of child development, Dr. Fiala, one of our leading values in this program implementation is to follow the development of young people. We put together in a way that they can remember the things that are so complex. In the Harvard Negotiation Project, it looks pretty messy. But when you're working with children in peer mediation, I love waffles with syrup does the trick. And if you like whipped cream on them, you're in Fat City, because work hard, H, be honest, no interruption, and no put downs. Those are your guiding principles for the process. So when you ask the question about what are our values in this program, you can see how complex that question is to us. The years go by. Dr. Benega invites me to work on the Bonner Center. And then he in his cleverness develops a grant and gets it funded. And we're required to turn out more and more school program conflict resolution programs that are mentored, and we're connecting with students who are going to be counselors, students who are going to be administrators, and we're putting them in the field early for experience on the playground. They're hovering as the young people start to do their conflict resolution. And I can only think that there's a lot of former mentors in the audience. If you are there, please chat in. And then there was Sanger. I remember a giant grant called School Policing. There was the idea that zero tolerance wasn't working too well, and that we should have some more humanistic approach to discipline issues. That was a kind of a new idea for the time. Now, of course, that's understood by everybody where you are. But at one time, that grant allowed us to have a conflict resolution program in absolutely every school in Sanger Unified, with mentor and support from administration, and yearly training 2 times a year. That means 2 days for every school 2 times a year. It's a lot of pizza. And don't talk to Kay Bonner Cummings about pizza. She's not going to have a conversation with you. Isn't that right, Dr. T?
That's very true. We changed the menu.
You're a healthy group now, yes.
I don't know if it is healthy, but we cut pretty much on the lunch program.
Is that no money or truly nutrition?
Well, it was bring your own lunch for
Ah.
appreciation days that we had, yes. And also we got sweet treats from one of our former beloved trainers and allies with the Mediator Mentors that unfortunately we lost this last June. Jody, who would have brought sweet treats.
Oh, we lost a colleague. All of us here knew Jody Zajac Kilgore. And it's been really hard to think about her not being here. Yeah.
Absolutely, yeah. And I think that I see Jack and Kay.
Oh, good.
Both of them are here. So
They want to come on in and tell some of our story.
This is Jack. Good to see both of you. Pam, it's been a long time.
Sure has.
Yeah, no, we're just very pleased with what you both have done, what you, Pam, have done. One little bit I can add to this, that in 1991 and 92, I just looked it up, we also had a grant with Balderas Elementary School when it first started. And all of the teachers got a master's degree in early childhood education with us. And part of that started this conversation, perhaps, because we did quite a bit on moral development. So they had a beginning, perhaps, in 1991, 92, very soon after the school was built and opened for the first time. But it's good to see both of you, and I'm glad we're here.
Oh, I'm glad to hear you. I'm not allowed to look at Kay. She says she put something over the camera. I don't know why.
Yeah, let me just say, I tried to get it on video. It wouldn't allow video. That's why so many people, I think, are not on video.
Oh,
Yeah,
can
we
we
have
do something?
Well, we have the video turned off so we can, because we're making a recording and it's much easier with just the limited cameras on the speakers. I wonder if I could push the conversation forward a little bit. And
Please.
And Negin, we want to hear from you also. So we heard a little bit about the history of the program. Can you guys, maybe Negin, we'll throw it over to you, and then Pam, you could jump in. Why does this matter today? You know, how does this fit in the world we're in? And I mean, there's a million directions this could go. So I mean, there's local issues, there's national issues, global issues. Would one of you want to talk about conflict resolution and conflict resolution in the schools and why it's important today?
sure, definitely. I will be happy to do that. And again, thank you everyone for being here. It's a true celebration this year for me specifically that I'm here with Dr. Pamela Lane-Garon, who's the mother founder of this program, and of course Dr. Andy Fiala, who was my mentor from the first day when I came here to this campus, which is in the back, Fresno State. I'm actually in my living room and seeing all the allies and my students. I really feel that at home, and I'm just having a conversation in my living room with all of you. And since I cannot come out and give a hug to all of you, I just want to give an e-hug to you guys. Going back to what Dr. Pam was saying and the question that you had, Dr. Fiala, probably I can also relate it to my own experience and what has happened that I ended up being involved in peace and conflict studies and working for United Nations, as you mentioned it, and then connected to the Mediator Mentors and the philosophy of the program. I was 6 when the war between Iran and Iraq started. And as a child of war who grew up in shelters and experienced displacement, and also homeschooled by my mom, who passed away recently. Um, I- the, as a child of war, I remember that every single day during the 8 years of war at 7 p.m., we were all just waiting for this one word, and that word was negotiation. And we were so carefully listening to the news at 7 p.m., the national news in Iran, to tell us that that attribute that was always connected to those negotiations was changed. So instead of a failure, a failed negotiation, all of us, I think, that we're just waiting for that negotiation to conclude, to come up to some sort of success. So that word negotiation was fascinating for me. I was 6, so I didn't understand it. 7, 8, still I didn't understand what that word meant. And I was like, okay, what is with this negotiation that is failing? And when it comes to peace and conflict studies, you will see that conflict management is actually the art of conversation. And that's what it makes it so important for us for today, locally, nationally, and internationally, to know that art of really having a meaningful conversation. For me, as a child of war, I thought that I have survived. And I wanted to see every and any child to survive, whether it is bullying, whether it is a conflict, whether it was in Afghanistan that I was serving. I just wanted to see every and any child go through a calamity, a conflict in any sort of it. And that's how I ended up going to law school, and joining the United Nations was a dream for me, because that was through United Nations that those negotiations finally became successful. So negotiation is very important. And I say that conflict resolution, and specifically the mediator mentors, or in today's 2020 terminology, we are calling it peace coaching, because of some of the dynamics in the program that have changed. This art really stands for, I tell my students, A stands for assess, and R stands for respect, and then T stands for tackle together. So how to understand the details of the situation, that's when what Dr. Pam was telling us, the wants and the willingness and the needs of all the parties, we need to assess that, right? And that's what our K-12, as well as our college students at Fresno State, through the Peace and Conflict Studies program, they learn. We want to have a better understanding of the situation before we can have an effective response, an effective intervention, right? And then that art, which comes, of course, respect, is that right now, with the changing demographics in the population around the United States, and also around the world, it is essential for our future peace builder, peacemakers, mediators, and any practitioner to gain proper knowledge and skills in cultural competency. And then that will bring us better together, because we can then respect each other's background and we can understand each other better. I was talking to one of my other mentors who's here and who's the president of our board the other day, and together we were thinking about this recent study by Purdue University, that they are saying for the first time in history there are 5 generations at the workplace. So there are the traditionalists, the baby boomers, Generation X, millennials, and the Generation Z. So there are lots of different voices that creates, of course, lots of strength in the organization, but at the same time, it brings lots of differences when it comes to the opinions, lots of different viewpoints. And the art of that, and that R part, specifically the respect part, is to learn how to hold a space for everyone, and especially those who are on the opposite side of our viewpoints. And this is how we can come together, and that T, which is tackle together, and then we can together, through a collaborative approach, come up with more collaborative solutions. And that's what we're trying to do through the Mediator Mentors program. So it's very necessary and critical to include communication skills and cultural competency in our curricula, both at the K-12 as well as the college level.
That was beautiful.
Thank you, Dr. Pam.
Pam, what about you? Do you want to, Negin, I think that ART acronym, I mean, we can use that. That's a good takeaway. ART, I like that.
If I may just add something, I'm sorry. I know that other organizations have used that, and they have other the acronym. Some says that the A stands for the Aikido practices, and T for troubleshooting. So it doesn't belong to me. It belongs to the world of the conflict resolution.
By the way, as I'm going to try to bring Pam back in. Thank you, Negin. People are writing to the chat. If you have questions and you want to interact, send some information to the chat, and I can as the moderator, throw those questions over to our presenters. By the way, we have people in the chat saying, this is great, this is beautiful. We have a lot of enthusiastic folks in the audience. Pam, how about you? What about, why does this matter today? And why does this, how important is this work in the world today?
Okay, I'm going to go there and embrace that. I'm going to pull up some slides to the best of my ability. Is it working?
I don't see it, Dr. Pam.
Okay, Bill, are you there?
Just remember to share a screen at the bottom of the bar. It says it's the green button.
I hit the green button.
And then you have to select the file that you wish sharing.
I selected it.
And then press share. It will be at the bottom right corner of that file.
Bottom right corner of the file. Oh, I had this so nicely down. Oh my. Okay, I'm going to have to go without it and leave it up to Belle. Belle, if you can save me, great. If you can't, I'll just die on the vine here.
Pam, is this the same PowerPoint you had sent to me?
How's that?
We got it.
Oh my. The Lord is good to those who wait. I'm going to advance these to show you something that approaches culture. It's a lame little slide that we used to use in training, and here it is. And our way of taking a strategic model, which was prescriptive, and touching somebody's culture or someone's individual unique circumstance, was to talk with children about their communication. Dr. T said that truly conflict resolution depends upon effective communication, or hanging with friends, or how you talk when you're in class. What happens when you're over at grandma's house or when grandma visits? Does the context of the communication change? So all we did was kind of poke at kids' experience and ask them, oh, do you have many different skill sets already? And that was the beginning of the possibility of talking about social justice. When you think about it, if we can't perspective take, if we can't imagine the thoughts and feelings of others and their life experience, we cannot empathize. Cognitive perspective taking comes first. That's developmentally affected. It comes along as we grow and mature. And unless somebody intentionally socializes it, it is not going to develop. You hear parents saying, oh, he's my sensitive child, or she's my bulldozer. And maybe you said things like that too. And you know that you have tried to develop empathy in your children, and you've seen who came into the world with a ton of it naturally and who needed your help. in pulling it along. So our job as professionals, in my view, is to take what comes into the world and help it become its best self, whether that's a child as a whole or an attribute in specific. So I see the challenging debates that our country is having on social justice issues as dependent upon our ability to perspective take, and then further to socialize empathy when and where we find it.
Wow. So well said, Dr. Pam. And if I may add something here, you mentioned empathy. And I just wanted to say that empathy in Farsi is translated as single-hearted. So the word is yekdeli. Yek in Farsi means one, single, and then del is heart, and the e at the end makes a noun out of it. And I think that that single-heartedness is one of our core values also as we are developing the social emotional skills in our K-12 as well as our college students. If you look at the logo of the Collaborative Association for Social Emotional Learning, which is known as CASEL, it says educating hearts, inspiring minds. And that reminds us of what Aristotle has said, that educating the mind without educating the heart is no education at all. And as you mentioned, that Dr. Pam, is for us at this time of pandemic specifically, and the economic hardship and school closures, one of the major challenges is how to build relationships and bring students back together. And unfortunately, going back to the issue of justice that you were mentioning earlier, that this pandemic, this whole situation of COVID-19 has brought up more issues of educational inequity at our schools. Teachers and students locally and around the nation, more than before, they are overwhelmed. The children who are not able to access the supportive routines of the school are missing many opportunities to learn and build those social skills as well as the emotional skills. And so building relationship is becoming more and more vital in our work as the mediator mentors and those of us who are involved in the peacemaking coaching through the different districts that we work with. I think that our main goal at this point is to create communities of peace builders by rebuilding those relationships. And Dr. Pam, you brought it up that the only way to do that is through empathy. And a cognitive empathy is that how does it feel to be in someone else's shoes? And imagine also how does it feel for that person to be in their own shoes.
Let me jump in from the couple of things from the chat, and you might want to address. We have Jackie Ryle says, I so agree. She says, I feel empathy is at the core of everything from social justice to the current cultural crisis of our nation. And then someone sent one privately to me. I think maybe they meant to send it to the whole group, but it's kind of a question. And it's from Julie. And she says, how can we see differences in others as not creating conflict, but as something to appreciate? So how can we work across difference in a peaceful way? How can we not let differences divide us? Do you want to jump in on that kind of question?
I do. I'm particularly interested in invitational language. I believe that inviting everybody to the table is the first step. And then once they get there, listening to what they have to say. So an illustrative point might be, when I first came to Fresno in 1997, I didn't know anybody. I hadn't lived here before. The Central Valley was not my home. And Jackie Ryle invited me to a dinner. And who was Jackie Ryle? I didn't know she was the ultimately talented facilitator that I would get to know, and board president. I didn't know. What did she do? She gave me an award. She brought me to this dinner and gave me an award. I just walked off the plane. And she said, this is for your conflict resolution work. What did she do? She hooked me in. She invited me to the table. She gave me membership to the group. So in that way, she did it on purpose. She's strategic. She did it with an open heart. And I hope I've paid her back a million times for that. But that's how to do it. When Jack gave his awards for character education, he was bringing people to the table. The fact that somebody was going to come and see their child get an award for having developed an excellent character, it was just more buy-in to the job of parenting. That's what we have to do. We have to invite people who are not like ourselves to the table. And then show that we like some of what they bring.
Pam, let me push a little bit. That's kind of scary to have to invite people who are different from ourselves to the table. That sounds like a lot of work. I'm being a little bit facetious here. I mean, how would you respond to someone that says, well, that's too hard. This is too scary.
Well, I kind of think that abdication of responsibility comes with its own punishment. If you want to live in a world like that, well, you can say that sort of stuff, but I'm not going to hang out. I'm being silly there and a little caustic, but I think that unless we're willing to take that chance and be uncomfortable, we're not going to get anything more than what we have now, which isn't comfortable for me, and I don't know, probably not for too many of you.
If I might say something that I saw in the chat, somebody posted that don't live in fear. And since Kay Cummings is here, there is a quote from her that I always mention it in my classes regarding fear. She believes, again, in a mnemonic technique. She says that fear stands for F, false evidence appearing real. And if you consider fear as such, and I really appreciate her for teaching me that, and she's another great board member, ally, who also have supported our program, not just with her time and talent, but also with her treasure, and we're grateful for that. If you consider fear as such, then probably the way that you can approach the other is that you're helping yourself with critical thinking, because you're challenging yourself to broaden your perspective and be inclusive of others' opinions, others' values, right? And that is the foundation of critical thinking. And I think that one of the great books that I have read, and it has nothing to do probably with conflict resolution, but more with art and design, is by Paul Arden, who says, whatever you think the opposite. And that will create actually artistic work, initiatives, being innovative, being creative, is that you can challenge yourself, your own opinions, right? And this is what we do as critical thinking at college level. If I may say something that I learned from our teachers, K through 12 teachers, I bow to you, because you are so creative when it comes to these exercises for our students in critical thinking. I remember the first time I attended one of the peer mediation trainings, the teacher gave the student a ladybug on a cardboard and asked the students to write on top of this cardboard that was like a ladybug, how do others bug me? So kids started writing lots of stuff, and then they said that, hey, now flip it, and how do you bug others? And that was for them the first challenge of critical thinking, right? So yeah, and whatever you think the opposite. I did the same thing myself, and I remember that I put, because well, I was new in US 10 years ago, and I remember I put acronyms, and people use acronyms. And then when I flipped it, I'm like, uh-oh, I do the same thing. I use lots of acronyms without giving the definitions, right? So do we bug others the same way we do? And how can we challenge that? I think that that's a good advice to live by. Whatever you think the opposite and challenge yourself. Probably that would be one of the strategies to use.
Can I bring something in from the chat? So, and as I'm doing this, I'm keeping my eye on the clock. We're going to want to open up for questions and answers in another 5 or 10 minutes. And I also want to invite you both to reflect on your hopes and dreams for the future and how students can get involved. So maybe we're going to move forward to those questions pretty quickly here. But here's a question from John, who says, what about young people who have experienced trauma and who don't feel worthy? I mean, is this, I guess I'm thinking John might be wondering also, the conflict resolution, the welcoming skills, those may be kind of high level skills. And how do we deal with trauma in the community and people who are really suffering?
May I?
Yeah.
Great question, Dr. John Minkler, a great question. I would like to be in conversation with Christina Castenario, who's a special education teacher, at the same time that I'm answering this question, because I know she has a specific individual who's coming to her mind right now. I think giving someone who is not yet there a piece of the action and helping that child develop a step towards the goal, incremental progress, and reinforcing, you got this piece of it, all right, you're in charge of that, that's yours. And another child can have this piece of the action. You know, it sounds like you're building something, you're making something, or you're doing a puzzle or whatever. It's like that. It has to be, I learned something small and I overlearn it and I can do it. And I get up in front of 2 other people who don't know that I can, and they see me do it. And I develop some self-efficacy based on a small performance that someone else has witnessed. That matters. So who's in charge of facilitating that? We are. And in the Mediator Mentors Project, we had multiple layers of mentoring. So we'd have a university student who was mentored by a professor, and the university student mentored a middle schooler who was the mentor to an elementary school teen. When you have that kind of layered mentoring, you can create a safe place where people can try out new skills. People who don't necessarily have a lot of them developed yet. The tool skills aren't there for whatever reason, whether it's due to disability or to cultural difference. Those students can be thinking of themselves as capable, one small skill at a time. And may I invite Christina to speak to that?
Sure.
Okay, where are you, Christina?
Oh gosh, Dr. Pam, I'm here. So, and Dr. Negin, yeah, I think you said it beautifully. And there's that those small steps that can be made, and the beauty with this project, I know that there's many of us who are here who have come to it in different phases as teachers, as administrators, and who are now in different phases of their career right now. But the beauty of what you just shared with having that mentoring piece, having someone who can meet a student where they're at that moment and give them their dignity, and it just be about that, and being about being with someone in their human experience as they're not feeling safe, and looking at trauma as really something that's going on with the brain at the moment. So the best thing you can do is, if they're going small and getting low, you get small and get low with them. So being with them and mirroring them in that moment to create that level of safety. And that's an invitation. That's an open door saying, I'm an adult that can be here for you. And oftentimes there's no words that are needed to communicate that. You know, there's just the ways of being. And so I think you said that beautifully. And then also with just knowing that the mentorship is such an important piece of this project, of having, yes, students who have the skills, and then having the mentorship of the university students being in space with our students, and then having the educator who's in space with the university mentor who's guiding the students. That is just this level of community that's wrapping itself around good processes that does then themselves lend safety. You know, kids could trust processes. So it creates that level of safety, and the processes themselves, as we've learned from you, are invitations. So I'll leave it there.
Well, that's what you do every day, and we thank you for it.
Negin, do you want to make a comment on this?
Sure, though, both of you, Dr. Pam and Christina, who is one of our great allies. Shout out to you, Christina, your team, everybody from the Department of Prevention and Intervention and the Mentoring Center, the CWAs, as well as my college students, our college students who are here, and they are practicing their cross-age mentoring, as Dr. Pam mentioned it, on a daily basis. One of the students today, I saw that he had a whiteboard behind him with lots of drawings on it, and I asked him, what is this? And he said that he had it for the kids, so that every time that there is a blockage in the conversation, he just invites them through visual art to get them more and more involved. And absolutely, and that's a great question, John, that our students come with so many different sets of social and emotional skills. They're living different lives at home, and more than before, they are only connecting through technology with one another. So teaching empathy is one of those much needed skills at this point, and cross-age mentoring definitely is contributing to that. I remember one of the slogans we had in UN was different needs, equal opportunities. And I think that's one of the best definitions for the concept of equity and the universal design learning that these days we are reaching out to them to define more accessible tools for our students, and how to include also those students who might be shy, who might not have access to the internet, to an empathic family. There is no empathy in that family, let's say. So empathy is imperative. We must think what drives our students and get them involved as much as possible. And I think that our college students are doing a wonderful job by investing their time and their talent to motivate and inspire this new generation of peace builder and peacemakers. And if I just may add something, that when I first had a conversation with Dr. Pam on the phone, I was so nervous that I had to have a full report ready for her. And I was just ready to give her a full report. And guess what she asked me? She said that, who do you live with? Do you have kids? Do you have fur babies? And these are the questions that build those relationships and come out of care and empathy. I was so nervous today coming here and not knowing what am I doing after teaching 4 classes and coming here. And then Dr. Pam asked me, how are your classes? And that started the conversation. And those are the 4 questions that reminded me of the 4 questions that Maya Angelou said, that unconsciously all of us, and specifically I think kids at this point, are asking themselves, and we have to be very careful about it, that do you see me? Do you care that I'm here? Right? Am I enough for you? Do you need me? Am I special to you? I think these are the 4 questions that Maya Angelou has for us. And we have to make sure that if the kids don't get an answer, or if there is a no, then there is an issue. And we need to make sure that we are addressing those emotional needs through active listening and caring and more empathy.
Beautiful, Negin. Thank you.
Thank you.
Negin, we had someone in the chat asking if you would repeat the UN quote. Maybe you could type it into the chat so we could see it if you think of it.
And I had a thought about Johnny Alvarado. Dr. Johnny Alvarado is the person who Maya Angelou was talking about. It wasn't me, Negin. She was talking about Johnny, because that's what he does every day. He's got this whole bundle of children at Bullard Talent, and I've never seen anybody who makes himself available personally so effectively and efficiently with hundreds of children. Where are you, Johnny? Can you talk? He's probably off making himself available to students. Let's see. Oh, saw him earlier.
Can you hear me now?
Here he is.
Yay!
Dr. Pam Lane-Garon, it is so incredibly great to see you. I have missed being around Fresno. Thank you for
Yes,
that.
you too.
Yeah, thank you for that. And hello to everybody. It's just a joy to see you, Pam. I just want you to know that you've been such an inspiration in my life for years, from my master's program to my dissertation works, and you've always been a great support of me. I don't know, for me, it's about mentorship, right? For me, it's about having people in your life that at some point you get to stand on their shoulders and be able just to scream from the rooftops and celebrate the work that's needed to support kids. Bullard High School has about 2,500 students on the campus when we are on campus. And from 9th to 12th grade, a very diverse group of kids, not only in demographics, ethnically, but also socioeconomic status, right? And it's just a joy, right? So I do my work because of what others taught me and how others have led. And I'm so grateful for having had all the opportunities to do so. So I live my life. I think one takeaway I get from a dear uncle of mine, an uncle-in-law, is every time that, and I think it's appropriate for this conversation, and I think Christina mentioned something in the chat as well, something very similar to this, is that every time I had a conversation with him, and he is someone that worked at Fresno Pacific University. Silas Bartsch has a building named after him there. He's a great man, a great educational leader. But every time I spoke with him, one thing I take away from him, and I'd like to share with everybody in his honor, is that he always had a focused eye. He always had an attentive ear, and he always had a compassionate heart. And you just felt that, and you realized that in conversation. And I think kids can pick up on that, as can adults. So in this journey that we have with mentorship and mediation and working with kids, I think that's an important quality, I think, for everyone to have as well. So I'm not going to take any more time. I will end with that. And Pam, it's so great to see you, and appreciate everybody and the work that you do.
Thank you, John.
Thank you. Hey, I see we've got about 5 or so minutes left. Can I invite each of you, both of you, to offer hopes and dreams for the future? I mean, not as grandiose as how are we going to fix all the world's problems, but can you leave us with some words of wisdom, and also if there's anything that students, especially if students are tuning in to this, how can students get involved, or the community as well? Pam, do you want to go first?
Okay. I'm thinking about the history of conflict resolution research. There are many professional organizations that people in this Zoom room should be focusing on from time to time. The Association for Conflict Resolution puts people together in the same room, like lawyers, social workers, human resource folk. It's diverse, right? It's as diverse as we are. And I believe that we can't allow our study to be hijacked by the events in our world. Example, in the Vietnam era, conflict resolution in the schools became popular. Why? Because our country was embroiled in conflict. So now what's happening? Conflict resolution is now on the menu. It's on the menu because people in this political climate cannot talk to one another civilly. They carry guns. I mean, I don't have to go through all that. We see it every day. We cannot allow our study, our knowledge base, and our focus to be taken away by events. And we can't dilute our knowledge and practice in order to be making it palatable to the politician of the month. There was a time, not too long ago, in an essentialist climate when we were only measuring academic achievement. And to get social emotional learning into the schools was almost a big no-no. I can say this, I'm retired. Okay, yeah, but now it's okay again to talk about social emotional learning. Why? Because we have lots of children going off the rails. We have children in desperate circumstances. So now we're going to teach social emotional skills and learning, and we're going to support it, and we're going to put money on the table for that. But let's not swing with the wind. Let's be there all the time, and let's develop our knowledge base, do our research. Don't go into a school without doing an assessment. Don't be hired out to consult without asking the people in the setting, what is it that you want to know? And when you know it, how will it help you? Who do you want to help? I mean, it's not just about ticking off the research of the month. It's about addressing real needs, and people with our knowledge base need to be there all the time.
Wow, so beautifully said. Who wants to follow that? I think I have to, unfortunately. But all what I can add is that as an educator, I think that our main goal and hope is to educate the next generation of motivated leaders. And by leaders, I mean those who are familiar with social emotional skills and cultural competencies, who care and who are who know how to practice empathy. I remember I was reading a quote from Michelle Borba, and on Selfie she said, where would you see a bumper sticker which says proud parent of a kind kid? And that is what we need to start from childhood, to plant the seeds of kindness and empathy in the hearts of our kids, and really developing those skills for problem solving, because problem solving skills are transferable skills regardless of the industry. For the Mediator Mentor programs, we aim to enhance the social emotional skills among our students, build a constructive conflict community, and create a safe learning environment for our students and educators, as well as our communities. And if you would like to get involved, please send me an email. I always tell my students, let's use the language of peace also. Don't shoot me an email. The first time I was in a board meeting, somebody said, shoot us an email before the deadline with some bullet points. And I was like, what if we send some emails with some flower points before the due date? So send us an email, Negin, my first name, at csufresno.edu. I can also type it in the chat. Reach out to us, and we offer 3 different sets of trainings throughout the semester. Before the start of the semester, at the beginning of the semester, please reach out to us, and you can participate in these trainings and learn more communication skills, negotiation skills, and social emotional competencies.